For almost 6 months, Russia has been carrying out airstrikes in Syria in support of its ally, President Bashar al-Assad. Moscow says its targets have only been fighters from ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra, but observers say thousands of non-combatants have been killed. So are civilians being deliberately attacked? And could Russia be committing war crimes? In this exclusive report for People in Power, filmmaker Najib Khaja went to investigate.
In September 2015, Russia began its bombing campaign in Syria. The Kremlin said it's primarily targeting ISIS terrorists. But 5 months in, and Russian bombs have killed at least 1,500 civilians. More than 300 were children.
This is a box for toys. This place was hit by a Russian strike, according to the locals in this area. And they're telling me that a woman and her daughter, they were killed.
In December, I traveled to northern Syria to investigate allegations that Russia is committing war crimes by targeting civilians. The border is tightly controlled, and I had no option but to get smuggled in illegally. But as I was crossing, I was caught and beaten up by the Turkish border police. Very few journalists are coming here because of the danger of being kidnapped, but also because it's become extremely difficult to get in. And this means that what the Russian Air Force is doing here is being underreported. I found evidence of civilian casualties in every city I passed through.
كنت باكل أسطوح بالبداية. كان معنا بالبيت صغير يعني هيك لفيت له صغير وبلاك صار يقود من الطيارة.
صوب بإيديه التنتين مكسورات. إيديه التنتين مكسورات وإجريه التنتين. هو أطفال هو شو ذنبين؟ أطفال صغار ما باركين في البيت ما شافوا اللي دمر البيت فوقين. مرة انكسروا إجريها هي بالبيت. طفل صغير يتكسروا إجريها. طفل بتركيا ما بنعرف عنه شيء طاول، ميت عايش ما بنعرف.
Apart from what I witnessed with my own eyes, I'm reliant on what people tell me on the ground. But for every incident I investigated, I later verified what I was told with monitoring groups, human rights NGOs, and through the Russian government's own official statements. Most of the impact sites I saw were clearly civilian buildings. This school was hit a month ago.
13 people died. Not people who were in the school, but actually people who were passing by.
I saw no sign of rebel presence, no equipment or evidence that men had been barracked here.
School books with the pictures of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
Elsewhere, I did come across small groups of rebels patrolling civilian areas. But the question is, how many civilians are the Russians willing to kill when targeting low-level foot soldiers like these? Or are they deliberately targeting civilian areas in a continuation of what I have witnessed the Assad regime doing for the last 3 years?
طيران روسي شيخ طيران روسي 3 صواريخ فراغيات هون بالغارة وحدة استشهد تقريبا 13 14 واحد هون فرد صاروخ واحد 13 هون واحد بايع خضرة استشهد واحد هنيك بايع خضرة استشهد هو 3 أولاد الأب و3 أولاده مثل عم بيسموا الإرهابي ما في حد يطاولوني شوق شعبي نساء أطفال وأطفال رايحين على المدرسة
نشوفها يعني عم نشوفها كله طيران روسي عم نشوفه والحمد لله صرنا نعرف الطيران الروسي شو والطيران كله عم نعرفه الحمد لله. يعني الطفل الصغير سأل الطفل الصغير بيقول لك شو هاد.
I'm in the middle of Ariha. I'm in the central part of the city, and I'm actually standing next to some buildings that were hit by Russian airstrikes, according to the locals in this area, 5 days ago. And there are some other buildings that have been hit in this area too. And those buildings are also, of what I can see, civilian buildings. I've been in Ariha today, I've been in Idlib city, and all these areas are actually controlled by other rebel fractions. They're not controlled by IS. IS is not present in this area.
So why are the Russians bombing these places if their primary goal is to tackle ISIS? As I travel, evidence of heavy recent fighting is clear to see. Last year, a coalition of rebel groups that are opposed to both ISIS and the government made major gains across the northwest, threatening the Assad regime's heartland on the west coast. Russia's airstrikes in Syria have mainly been focused on key locations in this area, where the Assad regime is battling to undermine rebel control. And nowhere is this more evident than in Aleppo, the largest city in Syria. It's of pivotal strategic importance to the entire war.
I just arrived to Aleppo and driving towards the inner city, and the city is totally destroyed. Ruins everywhere. The city is totally bombed out. I was here 1 year ago. It's actually gotten worse now.
I've come here to meet a group that has more experience with airstrikes than probably anyone else in Syria. They're called the Syrian Civil Defense Force, better known as the White Helmets. They're rescue workers who try to save people from the rubble of buildings that are destroyed in bombing attacks.
Russian airplanes in the air, so it's the alarm.
يا شباب بلا تجمعات.
لا بعيد عننا بعيد، ما هو حوالينا.
كيف؟ كتر اللي عندنا لهون.
لحق نرقد رقد. فوق البداية.
شلف.
They take cover for a minute in the basement, and then they get the call. The bomb has landed on a house in their district. They shout for survivors, but this street has been deserted.
We heard several blasts in a very short time span, and now we are heading towards the place that the White Helmets team they suspect has been hit.
Luckily, no one was injured, but there's another aircraft circling overhead. Suddenly, the aircraft dives.
وين شايفينه وين شايفينه؟ وين شايفه شايفين؟ وين؟ واحد ثاني. وينه؟ في باص. راحت هيك راحت هيك راحت هيك. وقتك الجناح المركزية نفس تنفيذ واحد اثنين. تنفيذ منيح. والله نحن بتكل شغل. مروحة عبيد فون مروحة. هذا مروحة سريع غير الأولية.
يلا يا شباب.
جنبه يلا.
There's been a helicopter throwing barrel bombs here on our way to the place where the barrel bomb hit. Barrel bomb destroyed big areas.
But before they get there, someone spots a helicopter overhead.
Helicopter's coming back, so we're hiding in here.
في صوت ها
قذيفة
في جرة ما انفجرت. ديروا بالكم يا شباب. تحتو في جرة ما انفجرت. بعد يقرب عليها. ماشي؟ لا نفس الجرار هذول.
جامع الطحان شيخ جامع الطحان باتجاه جامع الطحان.
ضياء ديروا بالكم يا ضياء في جرة بطريقكم جت من الأرض ما يبي إجراءات دبوا. أنا وصلت ضربة البرميل. شباب عم بسووا بحث.
A barrel bomb from a Syrian Air Force helicopter has landed in this street. The residents are shouting for a man called Ibrahim, whose house took a direct hit. Incredibly, he and his family emerge unharmed. But there have been multiple impacts in this district. The team runs to the next blast site. The people in this street weren't so lucky. Ambulance crews take away the dead and wounded while the white helmets head back to base. But on the way, there's yet another massive blast. But this bomb landed in a different White Helmets team's district, so the team I'm following continue back to base. Apart from the regular sound of explosions in the distance, back at base it's quiet. All the bombings the team responded to today were in civilian areas, far away from active front lines. It's impossible to know for sure if these bombs came from Russian or regime aircraft. But I saw no sign at all of militant activity in any of these places. Night falls, but it's impossible to get any sleep.
Airplanes circling, bombing the city. This is the third blast in 7-8 minutes. Airplane diving again. Big blast again. The inhabitants of Aleppo, they can only sit and wait and just hope that the bomb won't hit the area. There's nothing to do.
هذا هو الوضعنا بمدينة حلب. هذا بحلب. هذا قصف الطيران الروسي، مو النظام الروسي، مو الأسد. هذا هون كانوا مجموعين عائلتين، أخوة عائلتين مجموعين في البيت، عندهم بقى فرح على حسب ما فهمنا من أهالي. هذا البيت، هي الغرفة هون جوا، وكان هون في أطفال، طلعنا 4 أطفال هون، ضربوا، جا ضرب البناية الثانية، طب هون وفجر. وهي أطفال السوريين، طلع ما شاء الله، يا هلا الحياة نبضة يعني. يا هلا الحياة نبضة معهم، يعني بيركين رغم الدمار بيركين. هي كلها تكاكين يعني مثل ما شايفين، طلع كله مدني، ما فينا نقول مقر ولا شيء يتمركزوا فيه، ولا في هون شغله عبطوا هون، قصدي يعني داعش انه يجي هون يتمركز، ومدينه حلب يعني كلها سكن مدنيه مثل ما شايفين، كله مدني، ما في منطقه هون اسمها عسكريه او معمل او مصنع او شغله انه يتمركزوا فيها الارهاب مثل ما عم بدعوا.
متى هذا يضرب؟
هذا تقريبا صار له 8 ايام، 8 ايام ليله.
At the same time as this neighborhood was bombed last week, an aid station providing food handouts was also hit. 5 people were killed and more than 30 were wounded.
نحن جماعة مدنية وأنا هون، كان الشباب عم بوزعوا إغاثة الله يجزاهم الخير. صوت نزل علينا صوت وانفجار ضخم، ما بعرف ايش صار. أهل الخير الله يجزاهم.
بسم الله.
Abu Rahmo is with a team of nurses providing aftercare to the injured.
يا الله.
أنا كنت هنيك بحي هلا عند المجلس الحي.
عند مجلس الحي تبع الإغاثة.
تبع الإغاثة، أيوة.
بالهلو خاد؟
أيوة بالهلو.
هلا مثل هون هي الشظية بإيدك مو هيك؟
لين ما يتكلس بجوا العظم يطيب جرحه على الخالص، ما يتم التهابات بجسمه، هذاك الوقت بيصير له عملية بنطلع له إياها.
يعني هلا ما في إمكانية
طلع؟ ما في إمكانية حاليا.
نعم، الله يعطيكم الخير.
Their next patient was hit by a barrel bomb from a Syrian helicopter 5 months ago.
أخي أنت وين تصوبت وشلون تصوبت؟
والله هون بالأوترجي فوق بمحلي، بشتغل بمحلي، فجأة نزل صاروخ طيارة وصار
صاروخ
يعطينا ألف عافية يا رب.
الحمد لله في تحسن، وهون اجروا هلا يعني من جديد بده يركبوا له طرف، عم بيشوف دكتور اطراف، عم بيساوي له معالجه فيزيائيه كرمال يركب له طرف. وهون لسه عنده كسر بايده باجره لليسار والحمد لله وعنده يعني مفصل رايح.
Just heard a big blast and smoke coming up and looking for the place that the bomb hit. After leaving Abu Rahmo, I head out into Aleppo. I don't manage to find that bomb site, but you never have to wait long for the next bomb here. I stop on the street. A massive blast happens just down the road, and I turn my camera on. Suddenly, we see a jet flying low. It's a Sukhoi Su-24 with what appear to be Russian markings. Monitoring groups later reported that 32 civilians were killed in Aleppo on this day.
وين نروح يعني؟ تأجر يعني؟ نترك أرضنا ما نتركها غير على جثثنا. على جثثنا كلها مدنية صور كلها مدنية ما في حدا. ورجيني واحد جيش ورجيني المسلحين اللي عم يحكوا عنهم. ورجيني المسلحين كلها مدنية.
Never knowing where the bombs will fall next is terrifying. It's a state of constant stress and fear. A couple of blocks away, kids are playing in the rubble, and I wonder how the horror of this war will affect their future.
هون طيارة ضربت استشهد ابني عمره 7 سنوات إلا شهرين.
ابنك؟
ابني عمره 7 سنوات إلا شهرين. هون شلف برميل هذا الظالم بشار الأسد.
لماذا أنت تفكر بشار الأسد ضرب منطقة المدنيين؟
مشان يطفش العالم منا. مشان يطفش العالم منا مشان يخلى له الجو لحاله. مشان هو والشعب الإيراني يستلم سوريا. لكن مشان الشعب يضربنا. وينه عمر؟ وينه هذا عمك؟ هذا الطفل هذا أمه استشهدت هون. مع ابني. برميل. هون 8 أشخاص ماتوا هون. البرميل هذا 8 أشخاص. واحد انقطعت إيده كمان.
I leave Aleppo feeling pessimistic about the future. Russia's involvement in the war has made an already intractable situation much worse and the prospects for peace even further away. And while the world's leaders focus on their own national interests as they debate political solutions, the Syrian people continue to suffer.
لهلا الجثث ما معروف من اهلها من اصحابها.
هذا الشهيد وصلنا منذ ساعة من تحت الأنقاض. إلى حد الآن العالم عم تدور على الناس، العالم عم تدور على أخواتها، في مفقودين كثير، في ناس كثير مفقودين.
On my way out of Syria, I passed through Idlib city again. There was a massive bombing by Russian jets here yesterday. 73 people were killed, and the search for survivors is still ongoing.
So people just moved away from the spot because they said there was an airplane in the air. When people try to save survivors or dig bodies out, sometimes they get attacked again.
في حدا هون؟ في حدا هون؟ في حدا هون؟
These images from activists cannot be verified, but it's clear that in the last month, the Russian and Syrian air forces have massively intensified their attack on Aleppo. Hundreds of civilians have been killed, and tens of thousands are fleeing. This awful war is now entering a new phase, in which the already appalling humanitarian tragedy is about to get worse.
After this film was completed, Russia and the US announced a ceasefire in Syria from February the 26th. Airstrikes against ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra are excluded from the deal.